Welcome to the Charlesbarkleytulpadcast. I apologize for this intro bit here, but I just want to say an important announcement. All future episodes will not be on this channel. Even if all of you don't mind these podcasts being on the same channel as my other content, the most important thing is that I mind it, and I don't want it to be on the same channel. I want it to be separated. I have a certain idea of how I want my main channel to be, basically. When someone asks what I do for fun, I want to link them to this channel, right? I want all my videos to be like good representation of my skills and vision. If I have a podcast in between every big video, it'll just look awful when it's going through the channel, The person I'm showing the channel to will get the wrong idea of what content I'm proud of, I mean, personally, I think the first 17 minutes of episode 2 of this podcast are good enough to be its own video with visuals and stuff, but I don't feel the same way, okay? I'm talking nonsense now, but the point is to check the description and check the comments. I will post a new YouTube channel that will be just for podcasts. I haven't made the channel at the time of this recording, but I think it will be called Charlesbarkleytulpadcast. Might not be. I might also do podcasts with other people, potential co-hosts, potential shit posts I don't want on my main channel. Big shit, big change, good change. Go to the new channel. By the time this video, episode 3 will be public. Episode 4 might be uploaded to the new channel, so you want to go there after this is over to get your fix. Alright, so second bit here, I'm considering reading comments and responding to them in the show, maybe. I mean, I don't have any comments to respond to now, but, in the future, if you, leave comments or questions, I'll definitely respond to them. Get audience in it, The only comments I got so far is Jeremy saying, this podcast cured my depression, Xanthophobic saying, hot, IRL Server saying, hail Satan, and Felix Hart saying, I've honestly never come before. Not much to say about those. So if you leave comments asking questions or leaving feedback, I will read it on the show. You can be part of it, I might address on the video. Okay, alright, intro part over. So just know that no more podcasts will be on this channel. Subscribe to the Charlesbarkleytulpadcast channel. So last episode, I realized that my idea I talked about simulating feelings and just doing what works as a pragmatist might be kind of scary or warped to some people. Understandable. But what I was talking about was a thought experiment, like food for thought. If you want more #weird pragmatism, then here's my reality questioning thought experiment of the day. All knowledge is pattern recognition. Language is a pattern. The English alphabet is 26 letters that make up all words, bunch of patterns. Memories are patterns. If you look at some of the smaller insects, some of them will smash themselves into glass over and over and over and never stop because they don't have the higher pattern recognition abilities to realize when they gotta change the pattern when it doesn't work. This type of behavior is only really common in the smallest, dumbest insects. Once you move into mammals and reptiles and sea creatures, they won't do this because they're more intelligent. Humans are the smartest animal because they just have the most amazing pattern recognition of all. We couldn't develop language without this ability. We could recognize celestial bodies and seasons, and that helps with navigation and agriculture. You get the point. What this leads to is the fact that our ability is so great and so strong that we will see a pattern where there is none. Humans are very superstitious. You might think that if someone's favorite sports team wins every time they iron their clothes, they think ironing their clothes will make their team win or dumb. Well, the brain sees a clear pattern and believes they're connected. It's hard for a human to see a coincidence and simply call it that. We all have some really irrational superstitions like this. Something happened every time another thing happened and we just instantly assume they're connected. Now this can also do with fear and basic paranoia protection. If you're hunting as an early man and you see a bush move, it could be the wind, or a bunny, but it could also be a lion. And it is simply safer to assume that the bush has a lion than not. So we have to work with that assumption, but the worst case scenario, that paranoia protects us. Fear is a very powerful emotion. It overrides everything else and puts us into a survival mindset. Maybe hell isn't real, but just in case, it's safer to follow religion's teachings than to spend eternity in suffering. Maybe the government isn't spying on me, but just in case, I'll put tape over the computer, camera, and microphone. Now what I'm getting at here is conspiracy theorists. Now conspiracy theorists will see a pattern. Let's say the pattern is that many wealthy bankers are Jewish. Yeah, I'm going that one, shut up. So a conspiracy theorist will see the pattern and come to the conclusion that the Jewish elite run all the banks and all the money. It is really, really hard for the human mind to see a lot of connections and just accept it is coincidence. The brain will try to formulate a theory to explain the similarities. Again, this is really, really good. We wouldn't have the scientific method, we wouldn't have all these inventions, we wouldn't be able to get where we are without this ability. This ability is really, really good. This is just the consequence is that sometimes we'll see patterns where there is none. What was really helpful for me to coming to terms with the seemingly impossible million to one coincidences was learning about statistics and probability. Like stuff like the birthday paradox. I can't explain it well, so I won't try, but the point is that the birthday paradox shows that statistics and probability are not what they seem. It can be a lot more possible than it looks. Once I understood that, it became easier to rationalize coincidences as unrelated. So studies were done to see what can be a primer. What can make someone more susceptible to conspiracy theories? And the study came to the conclusion that by showing people how chaotic the world is, by showing them the stock market, by showing them riots and so on, people were more susceptible to conspiracy theories. By showing them how chaotic and random the world is, they're more likely to believe that there is more control and order that we simply don't see. It's another convenient truth. Depending on the person, it could be easier and more comforting to believe that events like the Holocaust or 9/11 were faked and orchestrated by invisible, cartoonishly evil villains who were responsible for all the world's problems like a comic book plot, and an action hero could just defeat the big bad and cure humanity's ills. Tend to accept that the ethics aren't so black and white, that there's no easy villainous solution, and that any random person can be capable of such evil. That's a lot more frightening to accept. You can't get a job or a girlfriend, not because of societal powers that hate you specifically, but it is easier for some people to put the blame externally than to work on themselves. But I love conspiracy theories. I really, really do. I consider them to be the modern mythology, because, like, what is a myth but people trying to explain something they don't understand? They're made to explain science that the people at the time didn't understand, and a lot of conspiracy theories are made to explain science that they don't understand. Stuff like ghosts and aliens and other cryptids have a huge impact on our culture, and a lot of reasonable people believe in them. Unreasonable people too, but still a good amount of reasonable people. I'm sure you know some. When I was a kid, all I did was research conspiracy theories. I think they were really good stories that mixed fact with fiction to the point you can't tell the difference. Really, really good stories can do that. That's how you know that a fiction is realistic. Or, good fiction. That's the point. So many stories in media are based around conspiracy theories and modern myths. It's a good writing prompt, I'll say. I'm actually building like a conspiracy cinematic universe where lots of my favorite series are true in the setting. I used to want to be a writer when I was a kid. When I was 12, I worked on this god-awful time travel story. I didn't want to get into too much because I've kind of disillusioned the time travel stories. I used to like them a lot when I was younger. I just thought so much about it, and I've rationalized it to the point where it's like closed loops are just bootstrap paradoxes, and they don't make sense now. Like dynamic timelines are pretty much always paradoxes. Like, for example, if you're traveling back in time to stop an event, and you stop that event, then in this new timeline, there's no reason for you to go back in time to stop that event. So how would that event be stopped? It's pretty much everything can cause a paradox in a dynamic timeline. The only thing that makes sense is the multiple worlds interpretation, where every time you go to the past, you create a new timeline. So if you kill your grandfather before he has children, then you won't be born in the new timeline. But because you come from a completely separate timeline, you aren't affected. You're going to a new universe every time you time travel. You create a new one every time you time travel. But then there's always universes that you left. There's always universes that can never be changed because you're just creating a new one every time you time travel. So it becomes kind of pointless. It becomes like, the universe doesn't care about you. So the three versions of time travel are dynamic, like Back to the Future, which just can't happen. There's just too many paradoxes that already happened in that show and in that series. Closed loops, where everything was meant to happen and everything was destiny. Kind of think like that scene in Harry Potter. But then that's a bootstrap paradox, because you go back further enough, and where did it originally start? Where did it come from? One of the most popular bootstrap paradoxes is where someone receives the instructions to how to build a time machine, and then they build it, and then they go back in time to give them past selves the instructions to the time machine. This is just a simple example. So you go back further and further, and every time a person gets the time machine instructions to how to build it, it comes from another person who built it and got the instructions to someone else. But where did it come from? There's no way. It's a closed loop. It's a bootstrap paradox, and it's a paradox. It doesn't make sense. Steins Gate did multiple worlds interpretation, and that one, I like that one, but still, if you think too much about it, I don't want to do it. But Steins Gate, the anime, is good in time travel wise. But most time travel stories are pretty fucking. I'm just an old elitist about it because I've thought so much about conspiracy theories and time travel that I'm just like, yeah, none of this can happen. So my story was a multiple worlds interpretation version of time travel. The story begins in the 5th time stream. Time travel has happened 4 times previously, and you kind of have to learn backwards what happened the previous 4 times, because a lot of things are different. It's set in the 80s, but a lot of things are different. Little things like technology is a little bit better. Some events are kind of changed. You're like, what the hell? and you kind of learn backwards that in previous timelines, certain things changed. Ronald Reagan isn't president and didn't win the 84 election and stuff. I was 12 when I was making this, right? I think it was if I worked on it, I think it could be a lot better. These 4 11-year-olds are, get like a message from the future completely by chance, and the message is like, in 8 years from now, aliens are going to start a nuclear war by this point. They're going to do it here and here and here. So you have 8 years to prepare. And they're like, okay. And then they prepare for like 8 years, and they're like growing up and stuff. And you kind of go through a little slice of life for these four kids going to school, but they're like studying and preparing for like conspiracy adventure, Then they become adults and they like fight aliens, and they travel across the country to try to stop, nuclear war. It could be better. And the way I'm explaining it, it sounds like it could be really good, right? Just the summary, it sounds like, okay, I could see how this works. But the actual story I wrote was really bad. So at the end, they like stop the aliens, right? And then 2 of the 4 main characters get killed, right? They get killed by a time traveler. They did this before in a previous timeline, and this is the timeline when someone traveled back in time to kill them. 2 of the 4 characters died. Only one of them survives long enough to the invention of time travel to travel back again. And then the sequel takes place in the 6th timeline, where this new character, who is just one of the main characters but older, but he doesn't tell him that because of it obviously caused a lot of problems. But he's from the future, and he gives them advice, and he helps them defeat the aliens. But then they go further. They're like, yeah, some of the shape-shifting reptilians have taken over the government, and they're going to start nuclear war through other methods. So we gotta fight them. And then they like travel across the country and just become terrorists. They become these super duper terrorists, but they're trying to stop the aliens who rule these politics. They're like invading, they're like raiding ambassador places, with killing people who are shapeshifting aliens and running away. So very action packed. The sequel is much more action packed than the first one. And then by the end, by the end of the story, they pretty much all die. They kill all the aliens except for one who is revealed and, captured, and the alien reveals to the public the whole plot and everything. And the 6th timeline is kind of where it ends. And I was going to build the previous 4 timelines and everything that happened. But the basic idea is that Roswell, contained the aliens. They landed. They're shapeshifters. They're shapeshifting reptilians, because I think it's funny, the reptilian theory by David Icke. And they're like observing humanity for 40 years, and then in the 80s they're like, yeah, we'll start nuclear war before the Cold War ends, stuff like that, and time travel. Again, it doesn't sound that bad summary wise, but the way I actually planned it out in my head was way worse than I could make it now. I'll say that. And I'm just so embarrassed and ashamed of it that I'm not even going to try to fix it. But the conspiracy cinematic universe is partially inspired by the story. The working title was Quantum Slate, starting from a clean slate, but it's time travel, Quantum Slate. Awful name. The other fiction story, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, in the sequel, he brings, futuristic technology. So in the original, they're fighting aliens with 70s and 80s guns and stuff, but in the sequel they have alien tech. They have alien shields, and they could turn invisible and stuff. Whatever, it's dumb action conspiracy shit. Yeah, I think a good portion of this episode will just be me talking about fiction stories that I've planned out. So if you don't like that, you can leave. The next story that I've been working on was a 70s vigilante story, inspired by the works of Death Wish, Dirty Harry, Taxi Driver, in seedy 70s New York, and you're gonna go kill criminals. So my methodology about making this one was okay, so here was me, learning from my mistakes. I was okay, so with Quantum Slate, I was too focused on the story and making really cool stuff happen, but the characters were fucking 2-dimensional ass wipers. They were pretty boring. So instead, here's the idea. I'm gonna make a story where I build up the characters first, the 3 main characters of the 70s vigilante story. I build them up, and then I just throw them into scenarios and let them work it out, right? That's my mythology. So this will be a very character-driven story as opposed to a very story-driven story. So I'm okay, I'll just create these 3 characters in the 70s, and then throw them together, and then just see just thinking about what they would do, and then let them do that, and then see where it goes from there, and make it feel natural. That was my methodology. So this is a very character-driven story. The 3 characters I haven't given names because I'm really, really bad with names. Yeah, I mean, if you couldn't tell by the name, Quantum Slate, I'm really bad with names. Even when I was a kid, I always forgot the names of my teachers. So I'd say, teacher, teacher, and they're like, what's my name? And I'm like, I don't know, I forgot. I'm always bad with names. I even ask people, like, okay, I'll show the video that I made. Like, what should I name it? Give me a title. Because I just can't do titles. I'm so bad at titles and names. So the working title for this one is 70s Vigilante Story. So there's 3 main characters. The story begins in 1978. The first character I'm going to describe will be the Vietnam vet, which has no name, but I would call him Vietnam vet. He was born in 1945. He is 33 in 1978. He grew up really liking Silver Age comics. He read a lot of comic books, and that's kind of like his main inspiration for becoming a vigilante because he feels like, the law enforcement won't do it, and comic books show that vigilantes are cool. He went to Vietnam War, and, everything sucked and hated it, and then he came back to America, and he kind of went to, like, a spiritual thing. He joined a cult in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. He was in a cult, and he lived in, like, a little commune, and then eventually he left it because he was, like, disillusioned with it. And yeah, it was shortly after he left it that the story begins. And, being a conspiracy theorist is his character. He believes that all the drugs that during the war on drugs and like crack and cocaine was coming to America. Because the story takes place from 1978 to 1985-ish is when the story ends. So it slowly works throughout like the war on drugs and like the crack and cocaine epidemic in America slowly moving through until that became a thing. So, he believes that the drugs were like planted by America to like destroy poverty communities and stuff. CIA op. And, he like leans towards beliefs about kind of like The Secret, where like if you believe in it, then it will happen. That if you like send positive energy into the universe, it will return. So he has a lot of like spiritual books and stuff like that. I don't never say it, and I never give him a condition, but he's coded autistic. And what I mean by that is that he has a really hard time reading emotions, and he's very monotone. He always talks in the same like voice. He's like, this is my voice, this is my voice. He never really changes it. And it's really hard for people to kind of like read what he's feeling. And he's very, he views himself as a very rational person. And he's like, yeah, people need to die, criminals need to die. And he doesn't get angry very often. He never gets angry is the point. He's very monotone and very isolated and introverted. But again, he's a very violent, crazy person like everyone else. I think I developed him pretty well, and he's kind of like Apocalypse Bunker prepper as well. So he's like the main, weapons guy because he was a Vietnam vet. The second character is the Runaway. He's 19 years old in 1978. He ran away from home around 14 to 15-ish and never told anyone. He never tells anyone why he ran away from home. And he doesn't even tell anyone his real name. He uses a fake name that he gives himself. And later in the story, he admits that his name is self-given. He doesn't want to connect himself to the life he ran away from. His philosophy is very much forget about the past and stay in the present. So he has this like life philosophy is just stay in the present, focus on the present, focus on what's happening now, and completely avoid the past. So while the other 2 characters often think about their past, Runaway is very, very like, fuck the past, forget your mistakes, become a new person kind of thing. He's the most violent and angry person out of all of them. He, very psychopathic, will kill people and stab them. He'll like stab their eyes out and, really gruesome deaths and stuff. Because Vietnam vet is just like wants to get the deaths as efficient as possible, just like get it over with. While Runaway likes to torture. Very angry, constantly avoids talking about himself or the past. He also has a huge scar across his face, so it's kind of hard for him to hide it, but he has a huge scar across his face, and he never reveals where the scar came from. I also don't know, one of the plans was to give him like a real attachment to animals and pets, and like, he hangs out with like homeless dogs and cats and stuff. I don't know now if I would do that, because like, I still want to keep him psychopathic, and I don't know if giving him attachment to animals will help. The third character is the driver. That's my working title for him. Driver is 24 years old in 1978. He's a truck driver, interstate truck driver to be exact. He's the most normal of the 3 because, Vietnam vet is very disturbed and kind of crazy. Runaway is a runaway and kind of crazy. Truck driver is the most normal and kind of like the fish out of water that you're supposed to look through when he joins the crew. He just he wants to travel and he wants to get around and he wants to have an adventure kind of thing. He's very tired of his life and wants to get out. And the closest thing he would get to, like, you know, traveling around America and traveling around the world was becoming an interstate truck driver. So he just drives his truck from state to state, going all across America, delivering stuff, and that's his adventure. He, like, you know, uses the truck radio and stuff. I'm still kind of working on how exactly they meet. It's basically like a rivalry or something, and then one of them acts out, and then the other ones join, whatever. But the point is that he loses the truck, and he's like, oh fuck, I can't even get back, and my job will kill me because the truck got destroyed in a gang fight. And he, like, you know, over time, he's very uncomfortable with killing, and his first death is like the first kill he makes is he puts a shotgun to a guy's head and blows it off, and then like the blood covers his face, and then he like gets something in his mouth and like spits it out. It's like coughing, and he finds out he has like skull fragments in his mouth of like the person he just killed, and he's just like breathing heavily and stuff. It's like an awful traumatic moment where he gets his first kill. But, you know, he's really into cars and trucks and stuff. He also knows how to hotwire cars and steal cars. So whenever they need a car, he steals it, you know, Grand Theft Auto style sometimes. But mostly when no one else is around. He starts doing, like, illegal street races. He, like, modifies the cars. Like, don't worry, I'll make us some money without having to, like, kill people. I'll do this race. And he's usually the getaway driver as well. So whenever the cops are chasing him, he's, like, doing, like, drifts around town and stuff. Pretty good. He also has like an expensive ass watch that he saved a whole bunch of money for, and when he steals a lot of money, he usually like tries to buy a watch or something until eventually he realizes that this is kind of stupid and you shouldn't spend so much money on fucking watches. Yeah, well, if I ever have money, you know, I can sell this watch. So if I just keep these watches, it's like money laundering. I can have money without it being money. It could be watches. That's like his rationale. But the point is, those are the three characters, 19, 24, and 33. They all cover their face in a different way. Truck driver wears a balaclava and aviator sunglasses. Runaway wears a hoodie and a domino mask. Vietnam vet wears a hat and bandana wrapped around his mouth. Vietnam vet is black. Truck driver is half Filipino, half white, and I haven't figured out runaway race. So they just kind of, you know, find places where people are selling drugs, find prostitution rings and stuff like that, and totally bust them. And the idea is that the action is very, realistic. I wouldn't say that now, but the point is that like it's very slow paced, and like they're just like kill one at it's kind of like hit and run tactics. Like they'll shoot someone and then run and then hide and then shoot someone again. They don't go like one person goes in the room of 10 and goes guns blazing. It's very one-on-one because, you know, it's very strategic, right? It's like that strategy about like you get people on a really small bridge. If a whole bunch of people are chasing after you, try to get them into like a really small, short alley, or get them into like a really narrow bridge. So that way you can fight them one-on-one, because they can't all fit through at the same time. That's kind of the strategy that they use, is constant hit-and-run tactics. They build pipe bombs. At a later point in the story, they steal a whole bunch of flash grenades, a bunch of concussion grenades. Pretty great. They build their own little smoke bombs and pipe bombs. And the action is incredibly slow-paced. Over the course of the adventure, they meet like other people and kind of get some like recurring people in like each town. Like, okay, in Chicago we have this one guy who can help us arm us, and then Florida, in Miami we had this other guy. They kind of build their own little network, and one of the ideas is that they start selling drugs to like fund it, and then they become a drug cartel themselves, and it's like, oh no, the camera will be hated. Maybe not, that's just an idea. But again, the story is very, very much improv and goes as it goes. It's kind of like little adventures. Runaway is afraid of the dark. Truck driver is afraid of heights. And Vietnam vet is afraid of drowning. That's the three fears. So yeah, that's the 70s vigilante story. I think the characters they developed are pretty good, you know. I came up with one pretty recently. It's okay, so here's the writing prompt for it, right? It's like, I figured out how to stop bullying. The truth is that you can't stop bullying in schools because they create a power vacuum in the social structure of the school. Take out the most aggressive kid, and the second most aggressive kid would take his place. Take him out, and the third most aggressive kid would take his place, and so on. The solution is to fill this power vacuum in the same way that the CIA did in the Cold War, when they created puppet governments and started world countries to take out communist opposition. The school will put a bully at the top as controlled opposition. This official bully will be trained by the school to bully in a healthy way. They will bully differently on a person-by-person basis to promote assertiveness and teamwork, befriend potential bullies, and teach them how to use their personalities in more productive ways. As an added benefit, they will report any rule breakings to the teachers and give the most outcasted students tough love and encourage them to conform to social norms, at least in appearance, so they can better function in society. So the basic idea is that schools start, at least one school starts a bully program, an official bully program where, like, you know, these characters are basically trained to psychologically manipulate Machiavellian style all the other kids and control the school system, and they work for the school. But the main character is like a double agent who wants to use the school's resources, the school's power to like control all the kids and become the greatest one there, kind of thing. And my idea, like, this bully has an earpiece to get advice from an adult professional in child psychology. And the story will work as a fun twist on a political thriller. So it's a double agent bully student who questions the motives of the school staff and must manipulate the minds of children and teachers to learn what it means to be a bully. A story that questions the essence of human nature and parallels our political landscape. The idea is that the official bullies will be split evenly between boys and girls to cover bullying on both sides of this coin. It will parallel imperialist foreign policies in the Cold War and its lasting effects in places like South America and the Middle East. And it doesn't outright say this is the best thing. The bully system will be flawed and taken advantage of by the people who see the holes in it. You know, one of the characters is writing for the school paper and he like kind of finds something that suggests that the main character is like in some kind of program, and tries to uncover the conspiracy of the official bullies, because I fucking love conspiracies. I fucking love investigative reporting. I love all of that. It's my favorite shit. So he's like a secondary character that you slowly learn. You know, the main character is a double agent, but the secondary character is someone who's investigating it, and you kind of see his like little handbook writings. You know, he has a little notebook, or he has like a diary or journal or something, and just scattered throughout the book, you'll see like little journal entries from this one guy who's investigating the official bullies. So this official bully kind of like, he's trying to take over the entire school's social class and social system and control them. The bully system is totally unrealistic. But the point is that he works his way up. Every couple of chapters, you'll see a little page showing a map of the school with little notes on it. And like, you know, over time you'll have notes scribbled out or changed. And it'll have a map of the school showing territories. Like, some bullies and some cliques will control some areas of the school. They'll show pictures of his phone contact list and little notes on each person. He's like, I can call this person if I need help on this. I'll call this student if I need help on this. And he slowly builds his own little, you know, social group and social structure. Just because it's fun, there are like hidden areas in the school. And then that'll be added to the map. It's like, oh, this is a good spot. This is a good shortcut. I'm not sure how mature or dark I want the story to be, because I definitely want one story to be like one kid is selling drugs and he tries to intervene, and the drug dealer pulls a knife or something. I want this to be aimed at kids, of course, but I want to include a little bit of drugs and stuff. And then like he's like, oh shit, I know I'm supposed to report the drug dealer. Is to get a drug dealer on my side and get a drug dealer within my social group, my clique, so I can control and learn about the people who take drugs, and then I can have a way to blackmail people. So there's an entire arc where he's trying to like work his way into the drug selling thing in school, and then you can use that to like blackmail students and stuff. It's pretty great. I think this story has a lot of potential. The kids are kind of dumb, and this kid is no different. He thinks he's very smart, the main character. He's like a Machiavellian manipulator who constantly obsessed with power, but he still makes like really stupid moves because he's a fucking kid. And I definitely want to write a story where the kids are still kids, you know? And also, the idea is that the main character is kind of overreacting and over-imagining what's going on. In reality, he's just making friends, you know? But he imagines it a certain way, and he perceives it a certain way, but it's not really like that. So yeah, that's the story. Official bullies. Official bully. Fucking controlled opposition, and like he has to fight the other bullies or like, you know, try to maintain his power, and he still has to like do what the school wants, which is to bully students and become the most aggressive kid, but still follow the school rules. It's pretty crazy what I have in mind. Pretty fucking crazy, but I think it's really good. I think it's fucking amazing story idea. Alright, so those are the three kind of story ideas I came up with. The last one I'm going to talk about is the Conspiracy Cinematic Universe. Oh yeah, here we go. Alright, so it's a very complicated setting, but I'm going to work through it just because it talks about a lot of stuff that I like. So I'm going to go from the beginning of humanity and work its way up to the 22nd century. So Christianity is the closest thing to what happened prehistory. It's inaccurate and has a lot of changes due to misunderstanding what happened or some straight up lies. but still somewhat accurate to how the origin of humanity worked. The Christian God isn't a deity, but I'll explain that later. Cain and Abel, the Bible story from the first two sons of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother and became the first murderer, and God punished him with the mark of Cain. He has immortality and will wander the earth forever as punishment. But here's the thing. He becomes the first vampire. Vampires are canon in the story, and they all come from Cain. The Great Flood was very exaggerated. What happened was a huge flood due to the Ice Age ending all at once. All the ice in North America, Europe, and Asia melt all at once unnaturally due to some interference by a higher power. Noah isn't the only one warned and built an ark. There are like at least 100 different Noah types, people who were warned by the Christian God and built arks. Most stuff before that is wiped out. So there's very rare arks exist hidden around the world. Like, in like 1500 or whatever, someone will like find an ark under the water and like it'll be like water protected or whatever. But it has all these ancient knowledge and like books and medicine and stuff. If you didn't know, in the Bible, one of the reasons God started the flood was because humans were having offspring with angels. This is the plot point in my story as well. All the angel-human hybrids are wiped out by the flood because, God wouldn't do that. But they're very powerful human hybrids and they developed magic. So all magic in the story is developed by the human-angel hybrids, and all the magic knowledge we have is from the arcs afterwards of the flood. Beowulf is canon. The monster and his mother that Beowulf fights in that story are vampires, descendants of Cain. Dragons are canon, both Western and Eastern dragons. They are different subspecies of the same dragon genealogy, but Western and Eastern dragons are different species, but they are still dragons. And they go mostly extinct in the Middle Ages, but there's still some in the Himalayan mountains protected by a secret society. So dragons are canon, and there'll be a lot of times where people need like a dragon scale, or they'll need like, the strongest armor, and the strongest armor is made out of dragon scales or something like that, So you'll see over once in a while, they're like, yeah, we got these from the dragons in the Himalayas. Like, what the fuck? Dragons are real. King Solomon is canon. He is one of the smartest and most woke humans in the entire story, and is the only human to develop magic after the flood, and isn't developed by a human-angel hybrid. He creates summoning magic. No summoning magic existed before King Solomon. He found an ark and had a connection with secret society and got wisdom from... So the idea about King Solomon, if you didn't know, was that like he talks to the Christian God and like he has a vision or a dream or something, and God says, I will help you, I'll grant you any wish. And Prince Solomon says, the only thing I want is the wisdom to help lead my people. And God says, well, you could have asked for anything, you could have been selfish, but you chose to ask for the ability to help others, so I will give you that wisdom. And he becomes, one of the wisest characters in the entire human history in my conspiracy cinematic universe. And, he has like the wing of Solomon, the seal of Solomon, and Solomon's ring, he can summon demons and stuff, and overall summoning magic is descended from King Solomon. So pretty good, pretty fucking cool. The Spear of Destiny. Jesus was crucified and then stabbed by the Spear of Destiny, protected by the church and then by the Knights Templar until internal corruption within the church fucked it over. So because of the internal corruption, because of people ruining the church, the Templars were treated as occultists and enemies by this corruption. So the Templars hand over the spear to another secret society. Secret societies are very important if you couldn't tell. There are many fictional secret societies that like reoccurring throughout history. The main fictional secret society in my story is like where a lot of main characters come from or interact with. When the Nazis occupied France in World War II, they tortured occultists for their secrets and eventually found the Spear of Destiny there. Okay, sidetrack. This isn't about conspiracy cinematic, but this is real. This is what I'm talking about, the real. But Hitler actually believed that the Freemasons were part of the Jewish conspiracy. So he discriminated against Freemasons and captured them and tortured them for their occult secrets. And if you look it up, there's a anti-Freemason, anti-occult propaganda documentary made in Nazi-occupied France in like 1940 or 1942 or something, where it's like, Nazis are saying Freemasons are bad, Freemasons are evil, they control the world of the Jews, don't listen to them. So this is real. Just a little fun fact about the Freemasons, they were tortured by Nazis. Anyway, in the story, the Nazis torture occultists, and they find the spear, which is in France at the time. So Hitler gets the spear and all of its power, and it made the Nazis much more powerful after the occupation of France. So one of the stories takes place between 1940 and 1942, where occultists and secret societies have to use magic and guns and shit to take back the Spear of Destiny, because if they don't, the Nazis would have taken over the world. No contest. So fucking awesome story setting there for one of the stories. is, World War II era occultist magic shit. So 1947, the gray aliens come to Earth, and they, to Roswell. And only the United States government makes a deal with the Greys. No other government makes this. So the Greys are mostly neutral, and they only want to learn about humanity. And they stay from 1947 until the 80s, where they're like, okay, we learned enough, and they leave Earth. They do small abductions and cow mutilations and stuff, all the 20th century UFO sightings of them, and then they kind of go away after the 80s. The US gets some alien tech to reverse engineer, which is basically where eventual computers come from, because, it's fiction, right? Even though we know how computers work, in this setting, computers are kind of like alien technology post-1950s. And that's where we get the computers today. This will come a point in the 22nd century. This is a plot point. Big thing, though. Aliens entering Earth adds the life force to the consciousness grid. The consciousness grid is the collective unconscious of all of humanity. It's a very spiritual kind of belief. So because of this, because Greys are on Earth for 40 years, they raise the collective unconscious level and the consciousness level of humanity, and they developed motherfucking psychic powers. So psychic powers are completely separate from magic. Both magic, occult magic, and again, the magic in the story is not Final Fantasy, Dungeons & Dragons magic, it's occult magic. I want to do more research about occult magic to work out how the magic system works in this, which I'm still developing. Psychic powers are completely separate. They are not overpowered. There's no telekinesis ever. The way psychic powers work is that they are a sixth sense. So they can do three things. You can remote view other locations by astral projecting, and you travel across the consciousness grid. But you have to meditate for like 20 minutes to an hour to enter a limbo hypnagogic state to travel through the consciousness grid and collect the memory of the Earth to remote view other locations. So a very useful ability, but can't be done quickly. It's mostly for reconnaissance and planning. You can't do it like whenever you have to meditate for a couple minutes to an hour. 2, they can enter other people's dreams across the collective unconscious. So inspired by Inception and stuff, they can talk to other psychics, they can plant ideas, and maybe try to get information about a person by watching their dreams, but very unlikely because dreams are mostly bullshit. Most importantly, they are empaths. They can sense emotions. Emotions and intent are an important part of magic. So psychics aren't magic and they have no connection to magic, but they can sense magic because it requires strong emotions to use magic. I know, right? When a psychic gets really good, they can tell if someone is lying or bluffing. They can tell if someone is suicidal, they can tell if someone is in love. And love is the second strongest emotion, only to murderous intent. So, important plot point, murderous intent is the strongest emotion. If a psychic is in the crowd of people, they can sense murderous intent, and they can try to stop the murder. If someone pulls a gun and threatens to kill a psychic, and they don't sense murderous intent from them, they know if they are bluffing. Murderous intent is so strong that the weakest possible psychic, who can't do anything else, you haven't trained, and they can't do any of the other powers, they can't sense any emotion, but they will have a gut feeling if someone has murderous intent around them. They don't know who specifically. You need to be a better psychic. You need to train your abilities to find out if you can, in order to tell a specific person has murderous intent. But the weakest psychic can just sense that someone in the area has murderous intent, and they're like, I need to get out of here. I just feel wrong. Also, because they can sense love, they can also sense if someone is having sex or masturbating near them. So very funny, very comedic joke possibility. Recap. Vampires are canon. Occult magic and summoning are canon. Dragons are canon. Spear of Destiny is canon. Psychic powers are canon. Aliens are canon. Dream traveling is canon. So imagine what it will be like 22nd century cyberpunk future, where the Christian God decides to begin the rapture. So the Book of Revelation is not a prediction. The Christian God cannot predict the future. He's not nearly as omnipotent as he wants you to believe, as many of the characters learn. It's only an outline of his plan for the rapture. So the Book of Rapture is a little bit inaccurate. We don't know exactly what the plan is, but we have an idea of how he's going to do the Book of Revelations. But with psychics and vampires and magics and dragons and cyberpunk technology and alien technology, one secret society decides, fuck it, let's kill God. So they try to Shin Megami Tensei that shit. Cain is back once the rapture happens. He is in hiding throughout all of human history and has to learn and plan, and he has a vampire army which also wants to kill God. Is he a villain or an anti-hero? Ooh, who knows? Will the Greys come back, or are they out of this? They were only here for the 40-year period. Definitely a lot of stories are going to happen from the 40s to the 80s, because a lot of conspiracy theories happen around that point. So I'm definitely going to work a lot within that time period and have a lot of important things happen there. What about the shape-shifting reptilians from the Draco star system? Forgot to mention them. They are aliens that take human form by drinking blood and infiltrate politics all around the world by just replacing powerful people and drinking their blood. They have been here since about the 1500s, 1600s. They are possibly to blame for the corruption of the church that threw off the Knights Templars, but we don't really know. Ooh, mystery. But unlike Greys, they don't have a way back to the home planet. When they crashed here, there's only 7 of them came to Earth, and they can only have offspring and children once a century. So by the 22nd century, there are only 17 reptilians that were born in the last 500 years, and some of them have died due to human occultists finding one taking over Napoleon. That's a story that happens during the Napoleonic Wars, but yeah. Often confused with vampires, who are also immortal and also drink blood, but completely separate. Huge coincidence. Humans think they're vampires, but vampires cannot shapeshift. Vampires are a lot weaker than some stories portray them, definitely. All vampires... Because, all vampires will die in the sunlight except for Cain. Cain is the one exception. So that's a conspiracy cinematic universe. I'm still working on it. I'm currently working on it. I'm doing a lot of research into occult alternative history stuff. Not sure if I'm going to include some of the Hollow Earths. There'll definitely be underground societies, which will basically kind of be like a Hollow Earth. But I don't think I'll do Hollow Earth. But I'm definitely going to... Because Hollow Earth is such a good story opportunity. Holy shit. So yeah, that's the idea for the Conspiracy Cinematic Universe. It's everything that I love about conspiracy series and occult magic and paranormal and stuff. And I just combine them all together in this huge narrative taking over all of human history. With all these different characters. Vampires are immortal, so there'll be sometimes reoccurring characters who are immortal. And they in the secret societies and... people read the books. Definitely short stories that happen throughout human history will be in a book by a secret society that one of the characters reads to learn about stuff. So there'll just be short stories scattered across that are read by the main characters of their respective stories that tell more about the world. Pretty fucking good. Conspiracy Cinematic Universe. Find me on Patreon to build it and make it. If you wanna write fan fiction set in my Conspiracy Cinematic Universe, just write it on fanfiction.com and just write it on fanfiction.com and send it to me. I'll read it. I'll give you advice and maybe you can help me write a story because such stories within the Conspiracy Cinematic Universe, bro. I actually have written some fanfiction on fanfiction.net. They're all comedies, but they're pretty good. My favorite one is Blue's Clues vs. the Mafia 2 Revelations, the sequel to Blue's Clues vs. the Mafia. Definitely check it out. Check out my fanfiction.net. Practice writing, but it's all comedy, whatever. My plan was that the first 3 episodes now, the first 3 episodes will be on this channel, the rest episodes will be on another channel, but the 3 pilot episodes cover the 3 things I feel like are very important that people know about me. First episode is like work ethic and views on like making content and making videos. Episode 2 is more about like philosophy and questioning reality and stuff. And episode 3 is like fiction and other interests and stuff like that. Hopefully you have a good idea of like me from these 3 pilot episodes that I made. I think we got more time, huh? So I went to a roller skating rink recently. When I was a kid, I really loved roller skating rinks. I was like, yeah, I love roller skating. Now I do it now when I'm older, and it's just like build up speed and then stand still while you move. I'm like, ugh. But then I looked at people around me, I'm like, oh yeah. I remember now why young me likes roller skating. Because roller skating girls are my aesthetic. Well, they were when I was younger. When I was 10 years old, I was really into roller skating girls, which is a pretty good aesthetic, Pretty rare, pretty obscure, but, a lot of variation, a lot of cool stuff to come from there. 10-year-old me roller skating into vaginas. I didn't have a good grasp on what a vagina was until like 15 years old. I didn't know what a woman's clitoris was until I was 16. I specifically remember that in my sex ed class in high school, they did not talk about the woman's clitoris. And then when I look at it at the point, I'm like, why didn't they tell me about the woman's clitoris? So yeah, definitely in the future, I'm going to write a big 30-minute, visual video where I talk about conspiracy theories. Talk about the ones I like, talk about the ones I find interesting, debunk some of the ones that I've debunked, and do a lot of research and write a really good video about conspiracy theories. You should definitely check it out. I just have a huge wealth of knowledge of conspiracy theories, above average knowledge of paranormal, UFOlogy, all that good stuff. Sleep, travels, collective unconscious. occult magic, occult history, all of that, which I'm going to throw into the conspiracy cinematic universe, which will be the coolest thing ever.